Hello and welcome to this Jerusalem Press Club briefing. My name is Matthias Akal, Project Manager at the JPC. We are joined today by Major General in Reserve Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Advisor and a Senior Fellow at JINSA, Jewish Institute for National Security of America. Last night, the IDF announced it had taken out Hezbollah's most senior military commander in Beirut. This morning, news arrived that Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh had been killed in Tehran, signaling a significant shift in the current developments. What is your interpretation of these events? Are we on the verge of a full-scale war with Lebanon or other Iranian proxies? Can we expect an Iranian response? Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. Just to mention, I'm also a researcher in the JINSA Strategic Center in DC. I think that if we want to understand the situation, we have to look not just about these two assassination of important people, one in Hezbollah, one the head of Hamas, but also to the situation in Gaza. Because the more that we understand the situation in Gaza, it will make the picture much more understood. Just to give you a hint about the situation, no one in Israel asked the question, what will be the reaction of Hamas in Gaza after the assassination of Haniyeh in Tehran? Everyone is asking about the reaction of Tehran, not of Hamas. What happened to Hamas in Gaza? So Hamas in Gaza is slowly losing its relevant capabilities. It will remain in Gaza. It's strong. It can force Gazans not to cooperate with Israel. But as a military organization, slowly, Israel is making it irrelevant. If Hamas begin the 7th of October with the 100% capabilities, today it is 30% capabilities. 70% was destroyed by Israel. If you combine this situation in Gaza, in which Hamas as a military organization, the military side, the military capability to hurt Israel, is almost irrelevant, with the success of annihilating the leader of Hamas outside the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in Tehran, and you combine it with the success of Israel to assassinate the number 2 of Hezbollah in Beirut itself, within few days after the assassination of the 12 children in the Golan Heights, you understand that the picture in front of the decision makers in Tehran, in Beirut, and elsewhere is different from the picture that they had a few months ago, when it was clear that Israel is losing its position. We had been shaken by the surprise attack of Hamas, by the success of Hamas at the first 12, 18 hours. But after coming from the shock of the barbarian attack of Hamas, Israel slowly is gaining back the land which it lost. You can see it very clearly in Gaza, less clearly in Lebanon, because we are very cautious in Lebanon not to deteriorate into a big war, and Hezbollah is cautious as well. And this is giving you the whole picture. It will be a mistake to look at the assassination of Haniyeh in Tehran and the success of Israel to eliminate the number 2 of Hezbollah in Beirut without taking into account what's going on now and in the last few months in Gaza and the success of the IDF there. Only if you take all the 3 of them, you understand the picture. And now I'm open to any question that you have. If it is not a gossip about or not about the domestic politics of Israel, I'm ready to answer.
Okay, so you mentioned the bigger picture. Some argue that targeted assassinations are ineffective because both Hamas and Hezbollah are ideologies with potential replacements always available. What is your opinion on this? How do these assassinations impact the current developments?
The assassination of Hania, they will find the substitute to Hania within 48 hours. It will be Abu Marzouk or Mashal, I don't know. Hamas will find someone to represent Hamas in Qatar and in Tehran. In the future, it's not an important figure. Sinwar is much more important in his position in Gaza, relating to everything which is important for Israel. And this is a very symbolic action. Make clear that Israel is taking all the limitations and ready to act whenever it can. And it says something about the determination of Israel to eliminate the organizational side of Hamas, not just the military capabilities. About the assassination in Beirut, it's a different story. Here, it is someone with huge experience. I remember many years ago when I was in the Northern Command. He was then very young, of course. And he has more than 30 years of experience. There are some areas in which he was the guy who is responsible to improve the capabilities of Hezbollah, with huge connections inside Lebanon and outside Lebanon. The one with which Nasrallah spoke whenever he had problems, and he could be trusted by Nasrallah, and also many people who can be trusted by Nasrallah. So this is a real problem and real success. It doesn't change the military capabilities of Hezbollah. We should not be taken by the euphoria and making a mistake about the proportion. But it is a very important figure in the leadership of Hezbollah, and it's not easy to find a substitute to such a guy.
So several journalists are coming up with questions. They are asking how might this current situation influence a potential agreement for the release of hostages or a ceasefire in Gaza.
I don't know, because the guy who made the decision relating to the hostages was not Hania. Hania was the man between, the one which represent Sinwar position in Qatar. But the decision maker is Sinwar. And Sinwar will be more influenced by the situation in Gaza than by the assassination of his leader, which spent his life in a 5-star hotel, in 6-star hotel in Qatar or in Tehran. So at the end, it is Sinwar. I don't know what will be the influence of this assassination on Sinwar. My assessment is that for Sinwar is much more better, much more important, the situation in Gaza and not the assassination of Hania. But he might make a pause to show that his how to say it, dissatisfaction from the assassination of Hania.
So talking about both situation, why did Israel take responsibility for the elimination of a Hezbollah senior commander in Beirut, while no one has taken responsibility for the elimination of Hania? Why the difference?
Because I don't know if it was done by Israel, of course. I never was asked by anyone to approve it, so I don't know if it was done by Israel. But if it was done by Israel, the notion, the history, the rules of the games is that countries do not take responsibility for such operations. And Israel is another state which is not taking responsibility for such operations.
So talking about that, I mean, what's Israel's strategy, and how does the elimination of terrorist leaders from Hezbollah fit into this strategy? I'm talking about the overall strategy in the southern front, the northern front.
No, the elimination of the Hezbollah guy, Al-Shakir, is a clear retaliation to the assassination of 12 children and injured another 20 in the Golan Heights, innocent non-Jews children. That their assassination make the Israelis very, very angry, and I can understand why. I understand why we are taking all the precautions not to kill civilians on the other side, and this is what's happening to innocent civilians in the Golan Heights. And that was a clear retaliation for that. We have to make Hezbollah understand, Nasrallah understand, that he will pay huge price for such operations in which he killed Israelis. And here it is children, it is even more horrific from the Israeli point of view. So that is not about strategy, the grand strategy of Israel. It is about retaliation to show and to tell Nasrallah, hey guy, if you do it, you'll pay.
So we have more follow-up questions by journalists. One journalist is asking, are the two impressive assassinations a vindication of Israeli intelligence after the shock and failure of October 7? And if Hamas is almost irrelevant as a major military force in Gaza, as you mentioned before, would you advise in a potential scenario the Prime Minister to seek a deal that ends the war, get hostages back, and potentially de-escalates in the north?
It's two different questions. For the second question, I think that it is too early. Israel didn't finish the job. They still have 30% of their capabilities. We need another 2-3 months to dismantle the other battalions, mainly to finish Rafah, and we have to go to Deir al-Balah, another refugee camp in the center. And that will take 2 to 3 months, and then to clean Gaza within a year. By the way, in 2002 in the West Bank, it took us 4 years to clean the area after the operation. So we didn't finish the job in Gaza. We are more than at the end of the beginning. We are towards the beginning of the end of the first stage, and then we have to move to the second stage, which is cleaning the remnants by raids in and out into Gaza, based on intelligence that we will have. So this is about the second question. About the first one, I don't think that it is now in our hands. The decision if to go to war in Lebanon is now in the hands of Nasrallah. Nasrallah and the Iranians, because he will not make such decision without the Iranians, will have to make a decision. Do they want a big war or not? And only then we will have the way to understand where they are going.
So we have another questions. Someone is asking, could you explain a bit further on how Israeli intelligence is gathering information to gain such precise information for strikes?
Okay, one lesson about intelligence. Okay, in Israel, as a little country with very little resources, has to make priorities all the time. And many years ago, the decision of the IDF and the intelligence was clear. We are giving priority to Hezbollah and Iran, and not to Hamas. And if you want an explanation why the intelligence was not sufficient in 7th of October, this is one of the reasons. It's not the only one, but it is one of the reasons. We allocated our resources to the north and to Iran. And ironically, our preparation during the years made the IDF much more ready for war in the north than it was ready for the war in the south in the 7th of October. So maybe we are more exhausted. Maybe we have less munition, and so on and so forth. But from the preparation point of view, planning, training, exercises, intelligence, targeting, all that is much better prepared towards the north than towards the south. And here we are taking the fruits of this effort during the last 20 or more years. Because the decision was clear: if you have to prioritize the north and Iran and not Hamas. I think it was the right decision. We didn't have enough in the 7th of October in the south, but the decision was the right one because the main enemy of Israel is Iran, and the proxies, the ring of fire that they build around Israel, in which the strongest element is Hezbollah, not Hamas. Now, after the 7th of October, we have to finish the job in Gaza, and then to think when and how and where to do the needed actions against Hezbollah. It might happen within a few days if the situation will deteriorate. But it must be postponed for a few months, that Israel will be in a better position to do it in the future after rebuild our storages and so on and so forth.
So you mentioned Iran, and there is a follow-up question related to that. If you believe that the assassination of Khamenei in Tehran so soon after he attended the inauguration of the new president sends a message to Iran from the Israeli side?
It's not in any way connected to the inauguration of the new president. It is not a message. The Iranians understand, learning this assassination, that Israel has many capabilities inside Iran, including inside Tehran, and it is not a signal. It's not an hint. It's clear by the evidence of the assassination.
Okay, and we have a lot of questions from journalists. I'm trying to ask for them all. How realistic is it that now Iran and Hezbollah and other Iranian proxies in this region will attack Israel in simultaneous operation to retaliate the death of both commanders? Is this a possible scenario?
It's a possible scenario. They tried to do it in the past. Iran attacked Israel in the 7th of October, launched since then more than 7,000, probably close to 8,000 missiles and rockets into Israel, and probably around 2,000 anti-tank missiles. So it's not that Israel did something and then Hezbollah will have to make its decision. Hezbollah decided to join the war in a low level by launching rockets, missiles. At the beginning, they tried to bring some Palestinians and to help them to infiltrate into Israel. It didn't work, so they moved totally to launching rockets and anti-tank missiles and anti-tank missiles into Israel. And then the number is huge. It's close to 8,000 rockets and missiles, and as I said, 2,000 anti-tank missiles. So it's not the beginning of the war. It's the continuation of the war. How they want to continue the war, we will see when they decide how to retaliate to the assassination of the number 2 of Hezbollah.
And if a war starts with Hezbollah, can we see a potential scenario in which Israel strike on Iran?
With Iran, we have an open account. I don't know what Israel will do, and of course, if I will do, I'll not speak about it. The main question is, what reaction might we see from Iran if it will be a war in Lebanon? Will the Iranians be ready to risk Tehran for Beirut? I think that they will be very cautious not to do it, but I advise my successors in the IDF and the intelligence, don't take my assessment as the assumption for your working plans. Israel will have to take into account that if it will be a war in Lebanon, the Iranians might join in. It's not my assessment that they will do it, but Israel cannot ignore the fact and the possibility and should be ready.
Okay, and moving to international politics, Putin condemned the assassination of Khamenei as political. How should we read his statement? What can we expect from the Russia, Iran, Hezbollah? I would add also Turkey alliance and, for example, Israel freedom of action in Syria and Lebanon.
I don't see any change in the freedom of action of Israel in Syria and in Lebanon. And those who want to believe that Russia is serious in its words about Israel, you know what the Russians did in the past and are doing in the present. So this is something that we are not taking too seriously. We appreciate Russia very much, but not when it is coming to moral issues and assassination of people. About Turkey is more complicated. Erdogan has some views about the Middle East which are very close to the ideology of Hamas. How much he will be ready to risk Turkish interests, it's a good question. I don't have an answer to, because it's about ideology. It's not about clear, cool, and policy that can be described as logic. But I don't see Turkey taking any military actions against Israel. That will be a violation of all the rules. And remember, it's member of NATO. What will be the reaction in NATO if they will initiate such a war? So I think that Erdogan will speak very high. He gave Hamas shelter in Turkey. Many actions against Israel came from Turkey. Not by Turkish people, but by Hamas people. Let's see what will happen. I don't know. Turkey is a very important country in the Middle East, but I think that there is a gap between the high words of Erdogan with his imperialistic dreams and what Turkey actually is going to do.
And keeping on another note, I mean, such operations in the heart of Beirut typically are conducted with cooperation of approval from the United States. Do you think a different administration will impact the frequency of this type of operation?
Now, we have very important cooperation with the United States of America. We don't consult America before we are killing our enemies. We don't getting any permission from the Americans before we assassinate the head of the terror organization, which is terror organization according to the American rules. We inform the Americans. We are giving them the needed information, but we do not consult them, and we don't give them, and we are not getting permission from them. We are not asking for permission. Israel is defending itself by itself. We need a lot of help from America, mainly munition and help in the United Nations, but we don't ask the Americans if, and we don't consult them how.
Okay, so we talked about the possibility of a war in the northern front, but assuming war doesn't break out and we return to where we were 2 days ago, what do you think Israel's next maneuvers should be in Gaza and in Lebanon?
In Gaza, it's very clear Israel needs time to finish the dismantling of Hamas battalions in Rafah. And as I said, there are other 2 battalions which are still waiting to be dismantled by us. It will take time. We are very cautious. We don't want to kill Israelis in the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. So we are doing it very slow. The situation in Gaza basically was not changed and probably will not change in the next few weeks, unless we will have an agreement with Hamas about releasing the hostages. Then that will stop all the operations. But without having this agreement, the operations in Gaza will continue. In Lebanon, we are in different situation, and we will have to say what will be the reaction of Hezbollah, and then to decide.
Okay, another journalist is asking if can you elaborate on the symbolic importance of this sort of targeted killing in Lebanon and if you can elaborate on this.
In Lebanon, it's a practical achievement. Now the Hezbollah has less capabilities in the area of purchasing, building its more sophisticated weapon systems in the future, and so on and so forth. This guy was responsible for many of these efforts by Hezbollah, and as I said, it will not be easy to find a substitute. About the assassination of Hania in Tehran, this is a symbolic action. It tells all the enemies of Israel, if someone will in the future act in a barbarian way as Hamas, Israel's determination to eliminate these people will not be changed. And at the end, the whole seniority leaders of Hamas will be annihilated, one way or another. We have patience, not today, tomorrow, not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. Hamas leadership will not survive. And the hint here is really clear. It's not an hint, it's a clear saying. We will do it whenever we can, wherever we can.
Okay. So we promise to keep it shortly. I don't know if you want to add something else to give a final remarks.
As I said, it's very important to understand the success of the IDF in Gaza. Without this element, the picture is missing very important parts, because the two assassinations of Hania, the head of the barbarian organization, and Hezbollah number 2 guy, if they stand alone, it's not a strategy. If this is part of the big picture in which we are eliminating the military capability of Hamas in Gaza, it gives you a better understanding and context.
Okay, I mentioned final remarks, but we have one more question.
No problem.
From a journalist, how concerned are Iran and Hezbollah about Israel's achievements in Gaza and the fact that Israel isn't agreeing to withdraw? Is that a threat to their axis?
Look, the Iranian strategy was built on some elements, and one of them was to build a ring of fire around Israel. The strongest element of the ring of fire is Hezbollah. The second one was Hamas. The third one was Islamic Jihad. The fourth one were the militias in Syria. For years, we are bombing in Syria to prevent the Iranians from building independent Iranian capability in Syria. So out of the two strong elements, which had been exist till the 7th of October, Hezbollah is still there with all the success of Israeli operations and so on and so forth. The main capability of Hezbollah is still standing and very active and might be more active in the future. The second element, which is Hamas, is almost eliminated. So from their point of view, it's a big blow to their strategy. If you want, symbolically, the biggest blow to the Iranian strategy will be the day in which all the villages, the kibbutzim and all the others around Gaza, what we call the envelope of Gaza, will come back, and all this area, including Sderot and Ofakim, will grow, will be stronger, greener, and people will be happier. This is the main threat to Iran. The ability of Israel to renew its dynamic life.
Okay. Thank you very much for your remarks, for joining us today, Major General Amidror, on what is a very busy news day. We really appreciate that also in such a short notice. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And we remind everyone that future events will be available only to members. Please make sure to apply for your annual membership to continue receiving our unique content and other benefits. Thank you for joining us.